I'm going to the Philippines from Stockholm and I have a 9-hour layover in Beijing. Why am I doing this to myself? Oh right, that's why. The Philippines lies almost 9,400 kilometers from Stockholm, around 5,800 miles. It's a country with thousands of years of history, and it's beloved by scuba divers and expats looking for a cheap country to retire in. But it's also facing a lot of backlash from tourists these days. The Philippines is a poor country, and it's not as safe or as inviting as places like Thailand or Vietnam. I'm gonna explore the Philippines for 2 weeks to decide if it's a good tourist destination or if you'd better stick to other countries in Southeast Asia. So let's get started. After a grueling trip to Manila, I'm beginning this Philippines adventure. I got to Manila after midnight, so I slept a few hours at a hotel before I'm continuing my trip in the morning. I found a round trip from Stockholm to Manila for less than 500 euros, so that's why I'm traveling at such miserable hours. The plan is that I'm not gonna stay in Manila today. Instead, I'm gonna head south to Puerto Galera instead. Manila is located on Luzon, the biggest island in the Philippines. I'm taking a bus from Manila to Batangas in the south, and from there I'll take a ferry to Puerto Galera on the island of Mindoro. I'm doing a combined bus and ferry transfer with SkyCat, and the cost is 24 euros one way. You could also take a cheaper local bus to Batangas and then buy the ferry ticket separately at the port. Or you could go for a private van or a taxi, but that would cost a lot more. It's still reasonably affordable to go by private transfer, so it's definitely an option, but I think that SkyCat offers the best compromise between price and convenience. Puerto Galera is famous for its beaches and for its scuba diving, and for girly bars and seedy nightlife in general. It's known as the Pearl of Mindoro because of its beautiful location, and it attracts many divers as well as expats and early retirees. Around 40,000 people live in Puerto Galera, but I'm not staying in the town itself. I wanted to go to Sabang Beach instead, just to the north. I visited the Philippines back in 2016, and on this trip I wanted to revisit some of the places I saw back then. One of those places was this place, Captain Greg's, but a couple of things have happened since 2016. The place had a huge fire and had to be shut down for a while, but it's back to its former glory now. It's not a luxury accommodation, and it's not the cheapest either. I'm paying something like 45 euros per night. The main attraction of Captain Greg's, aside from nostalgia for my sake, is the lovely view of Sabang Beach. This makes the whole trip to the Philippines worth it in my view. If you're not into diving or hanging out at the beach, there's not a lot to do in Puerto Galera. There's a couple of waterfalls and some sleepy villages, but the main attraction is the excellent marine life, especially at a place called Verde Island. When I was here in 2016, it was really easy to just walk over to a dive shop and book a spot on a boat to Verde Island, but things have changed. I had a bit of a trouble finding a dive shop heading out to Verde Island, and I had to pre-book it far in advance. And that goes for a lot of the more special experiences in general in the Philippines. Maybe the Philippines government is cracking down on unauthorized visits to national parks, or maybe arranging trips like that have become a lot more expensive to organize. Or maybe there's something else going on. Either way, I feel like you have to plan much further in advance these days if you want the top experiences. I mentioned Verde Island, but why am I so adamant about going there? Well, it's a pretty famous diving destination with an amazing biodiversity. And that's just one of the many natural wonders of the Philippines. There's more than 7,600 islands filled with rainforests and coral reefs and beautiful beaches. There's also more than 15,000 plant species and many unique animals like tarsiers. And you also have volcanoes and rice terraces and unique landscape formations and a lot more. Overall, if there's one thing that the Philippines is famous for, it's its spectacular nature. So let me show you a bit of Verde Island and why I wanted to come to this place in particular. Something extremely cheesy in Puerto Galera that you still shouldn't miss is the floating bar, the Bikini Bar. It's touristy, it's a gimmick, but yeah, it's damn awesome as well. And they have excellent taste in decor. Just look at that magnificent flag. I feel right at home. You can just swim up to the bar or dive here apparently, but I wonder what they do about the money in that case. It's slightly more convenient to take the free boat here. However, come to think of it, maybe it's gonna cost me to get back to shore. After a few days in Puerto Galera, it's time for me to move on. First, I'm taking a ferry back to Batangas and then a bus all the way back to Manila. Getting around in the Philippines is pretty easy, but some routes are a bit more complicated than others. Today I'm traveling to the island of Bohol in the Visayas region. The easiest way to get there is to fly from Manila. You can either fly to Cebu and take a ferry from there, or you can fly directly to Bohol. I've just visited Cebu briefly before and I didn't think it was the most exciting place in the world. The most interesting thing in Cebu is Magellan's Cross. Magellan did the first circumnavigation of the globe in the 1500s and the cross was erected by that expedition when they got to Cebu. Unfortunately, the Philippines is also where his expedition ended because he was killed in battle there. Anyway, aside from that, Cebu is a pretty boring place, so I'm flying direct to Bohol instead. Flying between cities in the Philippines isn't all that expensive. The trip from Manila to Bohol costs something like 50 euros. And buses and ferries are pretty cheap as well. Cheap for a Western tourist, I should say. Taxis and other transportation is also affordable, but it's not always easy. Many people online warn against scams in the Philippines, but I didn't really run into a lot of that. Except for the taxis at the airport, that is. Those people will try to rip you off. The problem is more about knowing how to get a ride. You can get around that by using the Grab app, but well, it's still not a guarantee to be hassle-free. A classic mode of transportation in the Philippines is the jeepney. Jeepneys are repurposed US military jeeps, often quite old, that are painted in bright colors. It's a form of public transport, and it's pretty much a cultural icon of the Philippines, symbolizing their ingenuity and their resilience. A jeepney ride costs less than €1, but I have to be honest, I didn't really bother with these since other modes of transportation are really cheap. Another mode of transportation is the tricycle, pretty similar to a tuk-tuk. It's a good way to get around in smaller places, like when I needed to get from the airport in Bohol to Alona Beach. And credit to these guys, not a single truck driver tried to scam me during my visit. They all charged around 200 pesos. Alona Beach looks really pristine and quiet right now, but I think that's because it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I have a feeling that it's gonna get more crowded later on today. Alona Beach is a popular place for tourists. Maybe a little bit too popular. It's famous for its beaches and for its activities, and for being a little bit dirty and overcrowded. Hotels in the Philippines vary in cost and quality, and I went for a 2-star hotel called Leux in Alona Beach. The price was around 35 euros per night, so I guess a bit more on the low end than mid-range. In general, Alona Beach is a bit more expensive than many other places in the Philippines. except for the super trendy spots. Let's talk a bit more about prices in the Philippines with some examples. A chicken and pork adobo at Captain Greg's in Puerto Galera will cost you 385 Philippine pesos, which is less than 6 euros. And a San Miguel Light will cost you 90 pesos, which is less than 1.5 euros. A small spaghetti carbonara, which isn't really small, will cost you 285 pesos, which is like 4.5 euros. A gigantic pork schnitzel will cost you 660 pesos, which is less than 10 euros. And an absolutely ginormous breakfast will cost you around 540 pesos, which is less than 8 euros. And all of these prices are of course tourist prices, but still quite affordable. A breakfast of champions at a 7-Eleven will cost you 115 pesos, which is like €1.60. That bread was really good. It reminded me of karipan in Japan. Eating at the airport isn't gonna bankrupt you either, at least not in the domestic terminal. A beef tapa with garlic rice will cost you 280 pesos, something like 4 euros. To get some perspective on the tourist prices of food, close to the airport in Manila, you can get a pork sisig for 100 pesos. And I have a feeling that that's also a little bit inflated compared to what you can pay at, normal places in the Philippines.
Every time I close my eyes, I see morning vision, midnight, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Some buskers are just a little bit more adorable than others. I just had to give her a bunch of coins. I have two things that I want to see today. I want to see some tarsiers and I want to see some chocolatey hills. Tarsiers are a species of really small monkeys with really huge eyes, and their names in Swedish actually means ghost animal. They're nocturnal though, so I'm not really sure how easy it's gonna be to see any, but they do have a tarsier sanctuary here on Bohol. So yeah, let's see how that goes. You can either book a trip like this online at klook.com or get your guide, but I decided to just have a private driver instead. A driver for the full day will cost me around 2,500 pesos. So yeah, that's worth it, I think. I could have gone on a group trip instead for a lot less, but nah. Aside from the cost of the driver, I of course have to pay for all the activities, and they range from a couple of hundred pesos to 1,300 for an ATV. So yeah, let's see what I get up to today. First up today is some ziplining among these lovely chocolate hills. The price was 700 for a Superman style or 750 for a bike ride zipline, plus 80 for an entrance fee. We mustn't forget about all of those obligatory fees. Well, that was slightly terrifying. That was basically biking on a zipline. And the final thing they say as you bike away is, keep your balance, sir. I wouldn't know balance if it came up and bit me in the ass. After that followed a bit of ATV riding that left me looking like I waded through a river of poo. The ATV ride was through the chocolate hills, and you've heard me mention the chocolate hills a couple of times, but yeah, what's that all about? Bohol has a couple of interesting geological features, such as around 1,260 hills that turn chocolate brown during the dry season. The hills cover a huge area, so I've just seen a few of them, but still, it's pretty marvelous to see. They just pop up like cute little, well, maybe not chocolate hills, but green chocolatey hills. It's supposed to be summer and dry season right now, but they aren't really chocolate brown yet. If you want to have an even closer look at the hills, I've heard that 2 of them have been turned into tourist resorts. I'll skip that though because it's a bit too expensive. I'm a 3-star vagabond, not a 5-star vagabond. Visiting the Chocolate Hills viewpoint will cost you 100 pesos and a bit of legwork. These hills are extremely gorgeous even if they're not fully brown right now. And they're very popular as well. We're currently driving through something called the man-made forest, and that's because it's a forest that's man-made. And the reason for planting all of those trees is to stop landslides. So yeah, good forest. And beautiful forest as well. If you want to walk over some amazingly beautiful and quite rickety hanging bridges near Lombok, it'll cost you 50 pesos. Well worth it. Just don't fall in, that's probably a bad idea. I did get to see some tarsiers, but I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that you can get some really good pictures up close with the tarsiers. The bad news is that this isn't the tarsier sanctuary at Corella that I wanted to visit. The tarsier conservatory sounds really similar, but this one is so much more touristy. And according to an article I saw online, they aren't actually an authorized sanctuary at all. I unfortunately couldn't change my itinerary, so it was this or nothing. So yeah, I feel a bit bad about coming here, but the tarsiers were really cute. To finish off my day full of excursions on Bohol, I'm doing a Lobok River cruise. And bloody hell, what a chaotic boarding area. This is even worse than at the white trash cruises of the Baltic Sea. Anyway, let's have a very late lunch and some hopefully beautiful river shots and some entertainment. Aside from monkeys and geological formations, there is also coral reefs around the island of Bohol. And the most popular place to visit is Balikasag Island. It's also the most difficult island to visit, difficult within quotation marks, because they only allow a certain number of divers per day. So this is yet one more place that you should pre-book if you want to visit. I visited Balikasag in 2016, just like so many other places on this trip, but I wasn't all that impressed back then. I think that I was just jaded and expected something else though. The diving is actually really good and there's a lot of things to see. It is extremely touristy though, just like the rest of Alona Beach. There are hordes and hordes of people and boats all over the place, and in the water for that matter, but yeah, I think I expected it this time and I was prepared for it. So I had a good time at Balikasag, but now I'm wrapping up my visit to Bohol and Alona Beach. It's time for me to travel to a place that many people call a paradise on earth. I'm taking yet one more flight, this time to the Palawan archipelago in the west. That's where you find places like Coron and Puerto Princesa, and also El Nido, famous for its amazing beaches. I'm not all that impressed by beaches, to be honest. I easily get bored by lounging in the sand. But maybe El Nido will change my mind, because more than 500,000 visitors per year can't be wrong, right? I wasn't sure what to expect from El Nido. I haven't been here before. The last time I was in the Philippines, I visited Coron instead. I loved the laid-back island vibes there and the wrecks. I wanted to see El Nido, but I didn't have time back then. I did a quick stop in Boracay instead. Boracay is famous as a paradise island with fantastic beaches and tons of tourists. I was afraid that I was gonna get the same vibes from El Nido. It is extremely touristy here, and even more so than 10 years ago when I was thinking of visiting. There are some pros and cons to that, of course. It's pretty nice to have some infrastructure and pretty decent services. But you also want a place to have a bit of a local atmosphere. I think that there's still a tiny bit of that here. El Nido is full of tourists, but it's not as chock-full as Boracay. Yeah, all of this isn't normal. There's a festival happening right now in El Nido. It makes it pretty difficult to sleep at night, but oh well, looks like a lot of fun. You see these signs everywhere, but they are completely ignored. No one cares about them. El Nido is full of activities, kayaking and ziplines, and of course hanging out at the beach. There's also an amazing canopy walk that will cost you 500 pesos, and you get a pretty magnificent view, even if you do get a bit sweaty as well from walking up there. And that rickety bridge that you have to walk on is pretty, well, rickety, but the view is so amazing. Some people climb all the way up that cliff as well, but yeah, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Not in my sandals, at least. But if there's one thing that El Nido is especially famous for, it's the island hopping. It's the top thing to do in El Nido, and you can't really come here without exploring all the hidden beaches and islands and whatnot. But of course, there aren't really any hidden beaches. It's all standardized and touristy, and you can only select between pre-packaged tours. Despite that, people say that it's an amazing experience. You can either go on a shared island hopping tour, or you can pay a bit extra for a private boat. I decided to do a bit of both. People say that Route A or Route C are the most beautiful, so I'm doing a shared Route C and a private Route A. The cost is around 140 euros for a private tour and, well, a lot less for a shared one. I think it was like 1,400 pesos, and both tours include a lunch as well. And as usual, you have to pay a bit extra for environmental fees and lagoon fees and kayak rental and so on, but I think it's worth it. You know what? I had a good time at the shared island hopping boat tour yesterday. I thought that I wasn't gonna like it, that there would be too many people and too crowded, but no, it's still an absolutely beautiful tour. If you're thinking about going on a tour like that, I highly recommend it. But today I'm gonna try something slightly different. Or maybe not all that different, because I'm still going on an island hopping tour, but it's gonna be Tour A today instead of Tour C, and it's gonna be a private one. The cost is 6 times as much as a shared one, so let's see if it's gonna be 6 times as good as well. And that was the private El Nido tour. I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that it was amazingly beautiful, and yeah, whichever tour you take, it's well worth it. There were some amazing lagoons and beaches, and I saw a sea snake, and I got bitten by a fish. So yeah, it's all fun and games, but was it worth it to take a private tour? Let's see, how should I phrase this? No. You do basically the same tour anyway, and the only difference is that you have fewer people on the boat. I would actually say that it was a little bit worse than the shared tour. I'm the most asocial person in the world, but sometimes it's actually fun to talk to people. But if you're almost alone on a boat, then yeah, not so much of that. Do the island hopping tours in El Nido, but skip the private ones. Unless you're a group of people, then of course it makes sense. In some ways, it's pretty strange that the Philippines isn't more popular than it is. I mean, sure, it's a popular tourist destination, but Thailand is a lot more popular. Around 12% of Thailand's GDP comes from tourism, while it's less than 9% of the Philippines' GDP. But the Philippines has possibly even more beautiful nature than Thailand, and the people speak English reasonably well, and it's more affordable than Thailand. But that affordability is of course because the Philippines is poorer than Thailand. There's more desperation in the Philippines, and it's a bit less safe. You shouldn't avoid traveling to the Philippines. It's an amazing place to visit. But you might want to be just a little bit more cautious. After El Nido, I'm flying to Manila. Then I begin my long journey back to cold Sweden. It's been an amazing 2 weeks in the Philippines, and I'm so happy to get some sun instead of the snow and ice back home. The question now is, do I recommend that you come to the Philippines? Should you visit this touristy tropical paradise of sorts? Yes and no. If you want things to be extremely easy and you want infrastructure that just works, then maybe you should visit some other tropical destinations. But if you want to experience amazing world-class nature, especially when it comes to diving, then maybe the Philippines is just right for you. You might want to be prepared to struggle just a little bit more compared to, for example, visiting Thailand, though. And whatever you do, don't spend too much time in the big cities. The smaller places on the islands is where you want to go. All in all, my 2-week vacation cost me almost 3,000 euros. And as you can tell, I splurged on a few things, but I mostly kept it at 2 or 3-star quality. You can absolutely spend a lot more if you stay at luxury resorts and book private transfers everywhere. But I think that I opted for a decent compromise between cost and value. And I still got to experience some completely amazing things here, so I'm definitely happy. I hope that this gave you a little bit of an insight into what to expect from the Philippines. Now like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day.